In the mountains, completely dark, I was dragged by the arm and thrown out of the car.
"Don't you ever come back, you parasitic leech."
Camping sounds fun, doesn't it?
My husband and mother-in-law said this from the open car window, laughing together. Then the car sped away in an instant. If only I could fly away. Today, I was looking outside through the window again. My name is Allison, 30 years old. I am married to Kevin, 32 years old. We live together with my mother-in-law, Mary. My parents have passed away in an accident, leaving me with no other family. I worked as an office worker and continued to do so after getting married. But after moving in together, I suddenly developed asthma. The condition became severe, and I was no longer able to work.
"I did say I liked reserved women, but I never said I liked them to be reserved health-wise, too,"
my husband said in an annoyed tone as soon as he got home. His criticism seemed harsher than usual, so I sensed it. Today is, oh, I see, the last day of the month, payday.
"Normally, if both of us were working, we should be living a richer life than most, right? How did it come to this? Thinking about how much is taken for bills and taxes on payday sucks."
My husband is particularly irritable on paydays. He shows his annoyance. Well, even if he said that, and he aired his dissatisfaction, he lit a cigarette and took a deep inhale, then exhaled the accumulated smoke. I choked on the smoke from the American spirit. Even just the smoke filling the room was tough on me, making me feel like I was being turned into a smoked ham. Then my mother-in-law did the same, lighting up her Marlboro that was on the table, inhaling deeply, and exhaling the smoke like him. Why do they have to be so similar in this regard? I coughed again. The cigarette brands used by my husband and mother-in-law were different, making me feel like I was being smoked with a mix of mesquite and applewood chips. Oh, Ham, now I understand how you feel. Watching me, they both became clearly more annoyed. There you go, coughing again. This had become a monthly payday ritual. We wish you could earn at least enough to cover our cigarette expenses, right? You're exaggerating. You're coughing all the time, with asthma anyways, aren't you? Every day with your constant coughing and wheezing. It's so annoying. What a useless spender you are. With another puff, a white cloud of smoke emerged from my mother-in-law's mouth. A payday monthly event. The ritual of smoking out the wife while berating her inability to work in her illness was nothing but torment for me. Come to think of it, I should have questioned this from the start. Is asthma really something that prevents one from working? It's just a cough, right? One evening, my mother-in-law started saying this. Apparently, out of cigarettes, she pulled out her wallet to go buy some new ones, only to discover there wasn't enough money to do so, which started her irritation. But a cough and asthma are entirely different things. My mother-in-law continued. The reason you were hospitalized last year was because the doctor wanted to make money by convincing you. Because who gets hospitalized just for a cough? If you ask around the neighborhood, who would believe such a foolish story? That is, certainly, it's true that I became unable to work. And it's also true that the income we could have expected from my work was lost. Being someone who generally doesn't talk back, I had no choice but to listen to such unreasonable harsh words from my mother-in-law. But then my husband added insult to injury.
"I agree,"
he nodded.
"Just for a cough, you get loads of medicine. And it's not just once, it continues endlessly. Frequent hospital visits, too. Why should we have to be involved in your hobby, in the doctor's way to make money?"
He fumbled in his chest pocket. Apparently he wanted a cigarette. It seemed there were a few cigarettes left, but even missing a few was enough to irritate him during such discussions. He tapped his foot vigorously. Oh! As if struck by an idea, my mother-in-law headed towards my bag. She grabbed my everyday shoulder bag, then unzipped it, Holding it with both hands, she raised it towards the ceiling, and then turned the widely opened mouth of the bag upside down. Everything inside, rapidly losing altitude, was dumped onto the floor. The contents hit the floor and scattered in various directions. From among the scattered heap, my mother-in-law directly reached for my wallet. What? I felt as if my privacy had been exposed, shocked by the intrusion. Is she going for cigarette money? But my mother-in-law's next move surpassed my expectations.
For just a cough, going to the hospital is ridiculous. This wasteful behavior must be corrected, you degenerate wife!
She shouted, and from the wallet, not a bill or coin, but she pulled out my health insurance card. What? The target was so far from what I had imagined. My health insurance card? I was at a loss for words. Ignoring my stunned, frozen state, my mother-in-law took further action. Still holding the health insurance card, she went straight to the drawer where my medication was stored, opened the drawer, and then grabbed and pulled out a month's worth of my medication. Returning to the living room, she shouted at me. For just a cough, you've bought too much medicine. There's a limit to luxury. Spending so much money for these ineffective medicines. For a cough, there are plenty of throat lozenges at the supermarket, so just suck on those. After ranting all at once, she dumped the medicine and health insurance card into the trash can filled with food scraps.
Oh, my lifeline.
My face turned pale.
Well, they say the start is the hardest part of quitting smoking. Same goes for medicine, so hang in there.
My husband grinned.
They say quitting starts with candy, too. Everything starts with candy.
I received advice on how to quit medicine from people who can't quit smoking themselves.
Man, your words hit different. I feel the love. Ah, and while you're at it, pass me some money for some cigarettes from that wallet.
Okay, I guess I'll take some too.
$20 was taken from the wallet, and the wallet was carelessly thrown back onto the floor, scattered among the other spilled contents. On my knees, I began returning the contents to my bag, wondering what I would do if an asthma attack occurred tomorrow. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law and husband praised each other for disposing of the medicine and taking the cigarette money from my wallet. I want to fly away. I want to escape from this place. However, discarding the medicine and health insurance card and forbidding hospital visits were not enough to satisfy my mother-in-law and husband.
Think about it. There's no reason to support an unemployed burden just because we're married,
said my husband. If she had her parents' home to go back to, you would have divorced already, right? I remember in an old book I read, if the female workers couldn't work anymore, they were sent back to their homes. She added,
It's only because you have no relatives that we let you stay here to shelter from the rain and wind.
They started again. What? It's not that I'm here doing nothing. I handle all the household chores. It was unusual to talk back, but I felt I really must say this. In fact, I would prepare 2 meals worth of lunch boxes with him, both for lunch and dinner, and I did all the cleaning and laundry as well. My mother-in-law did not do any housework at all. But,
what are you saying? Housework isn't considered labor. If you were working and earning some money, we could hire a maid with the money and still have change left over.
Yes, a wife who just lingers around the house without even having children is useless. They continued their discussion, and eventually it led to the notion that I should be grateful for just having a place to shelter.
How can you understand your place? If only we could leave her in the mountains.
Or maybe an island.
Or even bury her underground.
Such a half-serious discussion about abandoning me began. Beside them, I broke out in a cold sweat. The joke then became a frightening reality. My worst fears were realized. Indeed, my mother-in-law and husband actually left me behind.
Perhaps it's time you really understand your place. You should experience it for real. After all, experience is the best teacher.
Sounds like fun. They joked around with an attitude similar to that of parents sending a child on a school excursion. wanting me to realize the gratitude I should be feeling for being allowed to stay at home. No, please. I resisted desperately. I really have asthma, and I couldn't survive if left behind. I truly am grateful for being allowed to stay at home. That's why I do so much housework. I pleaded. However,
if you were really grateful, you wouldn't be coughing so much and making so much noise, would you?
Seeing the night view would make you realize how fortunate you are. Maybe you should ponder about my future care overnight, too. They retorted coldly. Thus, I was forcefully shoved into the car by my husband. Of course, by this point, my smartphone had been confiscated. After driving for 3 hours, I was pulled by the arm by my husband and thrown out of the car into a pitch-dark, unknown mountainous area. Returning to the driver's seat, he slammed the door shut. I ran and clung to the car, but he honked the horn as if to say, "Don't come any closer."
Don't you ever come back, you parasitic leech!
Camping sounds fun, doesn't it? From inside the car, my husband and mother-in-law said this through the open window. "Please, wait a minute." I cried out on the verge of tears, but my voice was ignored. With a merciless sound, the window closed, and then the car sped away in an instant. I watched the car's taillights disappear into the distance. When that light finally vanished, I looked around. There was no night view to be seen. There was not a single light. I wished I could fly. I looked up at the sky. In the pitch darkness, only the stars looked unusually beautiful. Without any lights, the sky seemed so beautifully close. I opened the zipper of the backpack, thrown out along with me. As I took out the contents, I took a deep breath. Having my smartphone taken away and being left in the mountains, I'm grateful being allowed to stay at home. I will live eating grass roots from now on. Please forgive me. I wondered if I should be on my knees to apologize to my husband and mother-in-law. I'd burned such plans of a husband and mother-in-law to the ground. It's time to fly. A few days later, I faced my husband and mother-in-law again. However, it was not at home. I was in a guest house. In a brightly lit room of a guest house, the new, clean walls reflected the sunlight, making the room appear even brighter. Such contrast to that night.
I saw it on TV.
Despite the reflected light, my husband began, trembling, with an ashen face that had gone beyond blue to almost black. On the contrary, I was in good spirits. Bright, just like today's weather. Well, I'm glad you did. Wasn't it good to hear some positive news?
Yeah.
I'll show it to you again. The owner of the guest house had kindly recorded it, and I deliberately played it on the TV for them. The morning news. A request for rescue by a drone. A rescue success. It was featured as a piece of uplifting news. On the screen,
that was some impressive piloting.
I was being interviewed. I've always mainly done aerial photography as a hobby, so I was able to handle night flying without any trouble. I replied to the news reporter's further questions.
When did you come up with the idea to attach a letter to a drone?
Smiling, I answered. I've been planning this since my husband and mother-in-law mentioned wanting to abandon me in the mountains. While showing them this interview, I looked down on the two of them shrinking in size. How does it feel to have your actions exposed to the entire country? My husband and mother-in-law's lips quivered.
When did you become able to pilot a drone?
My husband asked in a thin voice. I snorted through my nose. Ever since you two started calling me useless, I've wanted to fly away. The desire to fly only grew after my health deteriorated, and I was subject to their verbal abuse. I frequently gazed up at the sky with a sigh. One day, I saw a drone documentary on TV, which I left on during housework, and that gave me hope. I secretly learned it with the money I had saved before marriage. I couldn't bring myself to tell my husband and mother-in-law, fearing they would say I had started another expensive hobby. I couldn't imagine telling you about my drone to somebody who took my health insurance card away from me, It was easy to imagine you taking it and crushing it. When I thought I was about to be abandoned, I sneaked a foldable drone into my backpack. I attached a letter requesting rescue to it and sent it flying. The person who picked it up was the owner of this guest house. Thus, I managed to get rescued, and the news covered it. The request for rescue by a drone was all over the news. Seeing me on the news and then having their actions exposed nationwide, my husband and mother-in-law appeared pale-faced. "Well, it's good that you came over here without hesitation," I said nonchalantly. Actually, there had been 2 shadows lurking behind my husband and mother-in-law. That's why they were so pale.
I didn't think it would become such a big deal,
My husband exclaimed. "Yeah, it's just a cough," my mother-in-law cried. At a level where you can enjoy camping." I laughed out loud at their utterly inadequate excuses, leaving me without consent, dragging me into the car, and then dragging me out of the car by force. My husband stumbled over his words. With the 2 of them at a loss of words, I gave a signal to the police officers. Then they approached them. Their shrinking figures were pressed down even further.
"I ask you to come to the police station with us." "What?"
They gasped, their mouths opening and closing like fish out of water. Unable to breathe in shock? I watched this scene and laughed. I've had asthma for a long time and haven't been able to breathe well myself. Now that the police are here, you understand, right? I boldly informed them of the magnitude of their actions. What you 2 did is not something that can be dismissed as a mere prank. Excessive, that's what you were. Oh, and by the way, throwing away my medicine is also an act of property damage. I was still not satisfied. And finally, I tell you about the things you repeatedly mentioned. I stroked the drone. You probably know this, but since the news, I've been talked about on TV and various other media. Thanks to that, my name has become well known, and I've had some sponsors approach me. Well, I guess it's thanks to your disdain that my desire to fly was realized and the aerial photos I took were recognized. So from now on, I'll live as an aerial drone photographer.
"What?"
What? The 2 of them looked like they were about to flip over in surprise, but that was not to be. 2 police officers were standing behind them.
"So you're saying you can make money now?"
My husband asked, out of breath. I answered that question for him. Yes, at least 3 times your monthly salary, too. Hearing this, my mother-in-law then clung to me. "I'm sorry, Allison. From now on, let's try to get along." "Wow, it's the first time you called me by my name. Until now, you've always called me by, 'Hey, you.'" Smiling for the first time today, I said, "Oh, I'm truly sorry. From now on, I'll make sure to call you by your name." I dismissed that notion without hesitation. Well, I refuse to live together. Cigarettes are bad for asthma. My husband, panicking, pulled a pack of cigarettes from his chest pocket and crushed it. Then placed a crumpled box of cigarettes on the table between us as if it were a pledge.
"I won't smoke anymore, so please don't arrest us. And let's live together and support each other."
Are you joking? I meticulously placed the box of cigarettes back in my husband's chest pocket. "Maybe you can manage by smoking into each other's faces from now on." Looking at the folded cigarettes that were no longer smokable, my husband let out a broken voice.
"Ugh."
And so, my husband and mother-in-law were taken away by the police. Using their harassment as a reason, I received a substantial amount of alimony and divorced. Thanks to that news, I became an aerial photographer using drones. Since drones can shoot anywhere, I still live in this rural area where I have made connections after descending from that mountain. Having cut ties with my cigarette-blowing husband and mother-in-law, my asthma has somewhat improved. Of course, my medicines aren't thrown away anymore, and my treatment is going smoothly. From aerial photography, I have made further connections, and now I am also participating in test flights for drone development projects. I can fly now, and I will continue to fly, I thought to myself as I gripped the joystick of my drone's controller.